There. Got us recorded over there. Plenty of time. All right.
Yes.
Ready to rock, brother?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, you guys, we're going to be interviewing Jason Wojo here, or Wojokowski, as we've said before. There we go. Now I got you back there. All right, 3, 2, 1. Jason, hey man, I after reading your bio, man, I'm pretty stoked to touch base with you and kind of figure out a little bit more about what you do. I'll say one thing that stood out to me is for fun, you like to lift things up and put things down. And I think maybe hopefully we got that. I think we got that in common there, brother. But hey, welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you on.
So, man, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. I love what you're doing. And your audience is really blessed to have you contributing real value to their lives.
Well, we're trying, man, but it's only because we have great guests such as yourself. And even though they don't know who you are yet, they're going to be pretty excited to know what you are doing now. One of the things I love interviewing people that are able to talk just freely about their past. I think we have this misconception that people that are successful have always been successful. People that are now in leading positions, such as yourself as a CEO, were always in leading positions and always knew what life was going to look like for them. I know that that's not what it was for me. And reading a little bit of your bio, I know that's not what life was for you for many years. And so I'd love for you to just kind of maybe dive a little bit into, who was Jason back in 2009 as you were getting into this next chapter or soon to be chapter of your life?
Yeah, man. Well, and first of all, what you said is a mouthful. And I think people hear that and they don't fully realize this is the path that a lot of entrepreneurs and successful business owners go through. And it's part of the journey. So if you're struggling right now, that's not always going to be you. And you're going to have a success story if you stay with it. So just stay with it. And so I was back to, 2009, I was taught that the key to a great life is you have a great job. There was no entrepreneurs, no business owners, no influence in my life when I was a kid that led me to believe that anything other than getting a job was your path. And so I kind of realized okay, well, if I really want a really good life, I want a great life, I need to get a great job. Well, how do you get a great job? Well, nepotism, of course, but I didn't have any connections, so that wasn't going to be an option. And so I realized that I had to get a great education. So, man, this sounds ridiculous. I got 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, and then I capped it off with a PhD. Took me 15 years of school, 15 years of prep for real life, right? So that someday I'd have a great job. Yeah. I get in that very first job, and within a few weeks, literally, I realized this isn't for me. And I'm not an inner rebel. I'm not a guy that has a problem with authority, or I'm not some sort of stick it to the man kind of person. But just the idea of somebody else controlling my fate, my destiny, how much I worked, how much I made, the whole thing, there was a visceral response that it just made me cringe and realize there's no way on earth I can do this for the rest of my life or until I retire, when I'm too old to do anything else other than do nothing. Right. And so that's when I started looking into real estate investing. And so real estate investing was my first business out of that job. And I did well the first year financially. And so I started kind of getting bit by this entrepreneurial bug. I have 3 businesses. I still have my full-time job. I hadn't made the transition out yet. It did take me a full year to get out of my full-time job. But meanwhile, so I have my 3 businesses. I had a health business at that point in time. I've been super blessed and lucky to have got some national prominence as a bodybuilder. And so I had people approaching me for health and fitness advice, and I was doing training, and I had my real estate license, and all of these things quickly had me chasing my tail. I'm working all the time. I'd have my full-time job. I'd come home at night and I'd work till 2:00 in the morning, until one day my wife tells me that she wants a divorce. And she told me that she felt like we were roommates. She had fallen out of love with me. She didn't know me anymore. And me working all the time, let me make something clear. We still had our own issues that I was essentially, and let me tell you, this isn't a good strategy. Don't do what I did. One way for me to not deal with those issues was to work more, right? So I could escape and just bury my head And there was a hope that I could overcome these things by making enough money. And I remember telling my wife, I was talking about our relationship and how well I had started to do financially. I said, listen, and this is the analogy I used, as ridiculous as it was. I don't know what I was thinking. I said, I feel like the new iPhone just came out. We are like the first person in line at the Apple store, and the doors are like 5 minutes away from opening. And we just camped out like overnight, and now you're getting out of line. Like, we're so close. Like, if I continue on this path, like, we are gonna, like, we probably won't even have to work in another 3 or 5 years, and we'll be great. We can spend all the time together in the world. We'll solve all our problems. And she didn't care. She didn't want any of that. So she left. And at that point, I had, of course, fallen into the trap of, nice things, I guess you could say, where, I had a 3-story brick home in a gated community and all stuff. And now, like, I was in a situation where I realized none of that stuff mattered. Number one, I'd sacrificed everything that was really most important to me on, the altar of business success. And I ended up having to move into one of my rehabs, like one of my projects that I'm renovating. Like, I'm on a concrete floor on an air mattress. And that marriage, man, like that was the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life. And it's not because she was terrible and dragged me through the mud or anything like that. It was because of the impact that it had on me and the commitment that I had made, where I meant it when I said those words. And so, like, I didn't want to get out of bed for a month. And you can probably guess what happens to your businesses when you don't get out of bed for a month. And so, like, I moved out, I couldn't afford the house, had to sell that at a crazy loss, had to start over from scratch and redesign my life and my business with a different perspective. Now, here's the irony in all this. And this is embarrassing to admit, but I had gotten into Life and Air right before all this happened. And I remember my coach telling me, hey, listen, because the whole thing with Life and Air, and that's the company I run now, our whole thing is like life first, business and money second. Like, we're not telling you to choose, but we're telling you to really focus on life first. And I remember my coach telling me, hey, how's the marriage? How's life? And I would just be, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Meanwhile, I'm saying, like, just show me how to make the money.
Yeah.
I want to get on my job. And so that's what I focus on, and to my own peril. And that's what ended up happening.
Matt, you unpacked a lot right there, by the way. And thank you so much for being raw and real with this, because I think, once again, as I just stated at the beginning, so many people see the success now that people are experiencing, but they really don't know the pain that they had to go through in order to get to this point in their life. Talk to us a little bit. You talked about Life and Air, but maybe just dive a little bit into it. Once again, you were at the brink of some of the hardest moments of your life, the separation, the divorce from your wife. Now, at that time, did you have kids?
No. So that actually was a blessing at that time. Now I am remarried and have kids now. Mm-hmm. But I did not have any children with her, my first wife.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I just try to get a precedent, because I know that you do have 3 daughters, and I want to make sure, I just try to give people a vision of kind of where you're at. So what was it about Life and Air that allowed you? Because one of the things that I see with people is that it's super hard to take the first step. One, because taking a step forward doesn't feel like it's actually a step forward. Secondly is they don't know what the right step is. And so what was it about Life and Air that allowed you to take a step forward, and even potentially the right step forward?
So, well, the first thing that appealed to me about Life and Air when I first, so here I am, I have my job, and I am like, and there's all this, real estate education is everywhere. Like, and, finding who you trust and what you want to do. And so for me, when I ran into, so that the founder, Steve Cook, was known in the industry as being a huge player as far as, like, he had done 104 deals his first 2 years. But more than that, he was a guy with integrity and honor, and did things the right way. And so that was really appealing to me, because, I think, you got to be careful who you learn from. And so that was one thing that was really, really appealing to me, to get around him. And now, and one thing that actually happened is I ran into him at a property auction And I remember this is hilarious, but I remember kind of being starstruck by him because I'd never even done a deal yet. And here's this guy who's like the seasoned pro, nationally known. He's like a superstar. And so, I met him and he was super nice. And so I took that as a sign, like, man, maybe I need to connect. And just by coincidence, and in fact, he was living about 45 minutes from where I was at the time. And so I'm like, oh man, all these things are aligning. And so I got to take a step forward with this and do something. And now, so that was the first moment I think that I did something, because the pain for me, and by the way, I think that kind of thing was scary because I'd never like invested in any kind of coaching or mentoring or mastermind or anything like that. But I also realized the pain and the thought of me staying in that job and trying to do it on my own was way scarier. So like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. And that was that first step that got me moving forward.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I think that is so true with people, is that if they're not experiencing more pain in the moments that they're in, they're not willing to go to the next level of discomfort. And that's usually the driving force. So let's fast forward. You go through the program, you become a coach, and then now you're actually running the company, you're the CEO. How do you make that big of a transition from literally where you were at, which was broken and potentially somewhat broke, I guess, to now you're running that organization that actually impacted and changed your life so much?
Well, first of all, let me say, and man, what you said before about business owners and entrepreneurs having these journeys, right? Like you start from something. I think the same thing is true in many times when I hear business stories of what becomes possible and what they believe was meant for them. And so, and what I mean by that is, like, I met with Clayton Mask. He's the CEO of Keep now, formerly Infusionsoft. And he was talking about, like, when he started, it was just, he never thought he'd get to where he was, like, and you just see these things happen and they unfold. And I think when I look back at my journey, first of all, the first very, very, I wouldn't even say unexpected, I'd say that the first like miracle or event that I would never have predicted was me even becoming a real estate investor. So that was the very first thing, because I was trained as a scientist, man. I was in a lab, like, so that was the first thing that totally threw me for a loop, and also made me realize, like, we're not bound to any kind of particular path, but rather when we're open to cues, and I think we're open to opportunities that are strategically in alignment with what we want to do, like, incredible things happen. And so I ended up basically just following the path of, like, and the cues. And I think life kind of, and I'm not a woo-woo kind of guy. Like, that's just me. I'm a man of faith, but I'm not like, a woo-woo kind of new age guy personally. And that's fine if that's you. But I feel like following the breadcrumbs that life leads for you kind of leads you in the direction when you're paying attention. And so I don't think it's based on qualifications, because I remember, when Steve first asked me to partner with him and run the company, first thing I said is, like, Steve, you realize I'm completely unqualified for this, right? Like, I have zero qualifications. I'm going to burn this thing down, man. Like, and he's like, he just laughed, and he's like, no, I see something in you, and I believe in you, and yeah, of course you'll make mistakes, but you'll figure it out. And so, interestingly, those are the same words he said to me back in 2009 when I joined the coaching with Life and Air. At that time, there were people in that mastermind group who were national gurus and people who were people knew who they were. And there's little old me, never even done a deal. I'm like, Steve, I don't belong. Like, I'm not ready. I'm not at this level. And he said those same words to me. He's like, there's something in you that I think, you'll fit in right now. You'll be a contributor. I know something magical will happen. And so for me, it was somebody else seeing that in me. And, like, I just loved what we were doing so much that I had kind of, frankly, this had become something that I was much more passionate about than just doing deals in real estate. And so my heart was in it, and I guess it must have shown through.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that, one of the things that stands out to me, what you were talking about, was undeserved or unearned confidence at that point in your life, and how important it is to surround yourself with other people that see that potential in you. Right. And I think that's what's so great about coaching, what's so great about mentoring, is oftentimes we're trying to we're trying to step into this role of the better version of ourselves. And at that time, we haven't earned that, right? We don't have maybe those integrity moments already lined up within us, and they haven't been developed in us yet. And obviously you had a great mentor, a role model, somebody to look up to, but also to somebody to pour into you with life. Curious to know on your end as well too, is like, what are you seeing? Like the people that you're coaching right now, what, like, they come to you probably at the beginning wanting financial success, right? Like, hey, help me become this millionaire. But at the end of the day, you know that that's not really what they're searching for.
Right.
What are you seeing people realize and recognize after they go through one of your programs about what they're truly after?
Man, well, so you said something really important there. And that is, so the first thing with Life in Air is like, and this sounds corny, but I'm there to meet you and love on you where you are. And so if you are somebody who still thinks that money is the answer, okay, I'll meet you there. I'll give you that. But I know that 9.5 times out of 10, you will very quickly realize that money is not the solution you're looking for. Like what you really want is the life. You want the freedom, you want the satisfaction, the fulfillment, the passion. And so, but if you think that's and by the way, I'm not going to throw stones because I was that guy. Like I thought money was the solution. And so I totally get it. And so that's why I believe that like what we really do is like, I think, you give the person what they want and then you give them what they need. And so let's take that distraction or that belief that money is going to make you happy out of the picture, because I'm going to help you make more money than you've ever made. And you're still going to feel the same way. Like and this is where I've told people, like, I remember when there was a point in my life where I thought, man, if I just had $5,000 in the bank, oh my gosh, like my life would be like, $5,000. And then I hit $5,000. Then I'm like, if I just had 10 grand, if I just had 25, 50, 100, 200, it kept going. And that's when I realized it had nothing to do with money. Like, yes, we're not talking about abject levels of poverty, but like, let's help you make the money if that's what you want. But more so, what I try to help people realize is that, money is just one small piece of the puzzle in that, what you really want. And when we walk people through this, like, for instance, at some of our events, is like, at the end of the day, I think what you really want is, you want love, you want connections, you want to feel secure, you want to feel important, you want to feel like you're making a contribution, and money can help you do that, but it's not the full picture. And some people realize that sooner than others. Like, some people actually, we've run across people. One of the exercises we do at our events is like, hey, create your vision. Now, a vision in our terms is it's a combination of like a dozen different things. And we want you to get a really tangible picture of what that looks like. And then we have you figure out what that costs to actually fulfill. Like, how much does this really cost you? And we see some people after they've created their vision, they're like, gosh, like, I thought I had to make, $250 or $500,000 a year. And I realized my vision's costing me like $40,000 a year. And, it's just interesting how people's eyes start to get open to that once they realize what they're really after.
Yeah, I think that's really good what you said, because you're absolutely right. I mean, I look back at my journey very similar to yours in the sense of eventually getting to this point of just not happy with who I was, not happy with the decisions I was making, not happy with the vision I had for my life or lack thereof. And just like you said, I think that people have to walk themselves through these steps in order to find that clarity, right? I think we get confused in the sense that, oh, we want certainty. No, you don't want certainty. What you're looking for is clarity, right? Clarity in your life. And it sounds like what your company is able to do, what Life in Air is able to do, is really help people clarify, what do you truly want? And just like you said, what is it going to cost you to be able to have that in your life? And people, I think, will be overwhelmingly surprised at the amount it doesn't cost in order to have that joy that they want in their life.
It's so super true, man. And I'll tell you, most people believe they know what they want for their life. And that's awesome. And I think most people have a superficial level or an intermediate level, but like when I start having conversations, it becomes really apparent. Like, for instance, like someone might say like, hey, I want a great relationship with my wife. Right. Okay. Awesome. Like, that's fantastic. What does that look like? Well, we don't fight. Okay. What else? Well, and they'll kind of think on the cuff of what that looks like. But imagine how different it would be as if you had a very concrete and tangible definition on what that meant. Like, hey, and how does that show up in your calendar? Like, you can tell me this is important to you all day long, but do I see it in your calendar? Are you scheduling time with your spouse? Are you guys doing things together? Are you having conversations? Are you aligned? And you can even extrapolate that further. Like, so for instance, this is kind of cool. My oldest daughter, right now she's 22. She had seen us do this exercise at our Get a Life getaway. And so she decided to do it on her own, where, she made up several years ago a vision for her perfect spouse, like the kind of guy that she wants to be with. And so here's all the non-negotiables. Like, he has to, here's a list of things. Here's the things that would be cool, but aren't a requirement. And so she created this list. And so imagine if we were to have that kind of discernment with our lives, with every component of our lives. And by the way, speaking of marriages, how many less divorces would we have if we actually put the time in to do this, right? If we spend as much time planning our marriage as we did our wedding, like we'd be in a way better place. And so this applies everywhere.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm glad you opened up the avenue to talk about our children. You've got 3 daughters. I've got 4 children. And one of the things that my wife and I are going through right now is, like, how do I take what I know in the business side of things? How do I take what I know on the personal development side of things and make sure I'm doing that development with our children, right? It's easy for me to kind of wear the dad hat or I say the father hat. The father hat is more of the right and wrong and the disciplinarian. The dad is the one that's really kind of getting down with them and wrestling with them or playing games and so forth. How have you done it where you've taken all of this knowledge that you have that's impacting and changing the lives of adults and been able to do that with your own family?
Man, that's an awesome question, because at the end of the day, I think that's where our biggest potential legacy and impact is going to be made, right? Because we're the head of the household if you're a man, if that's your belief.
Sure.
But at the same time, like, so what I've done is, like, from a young age, my oldest, so I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and my 22-year-old. And so, like, even my 4-year-old,
right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You're telling me, man, like, I'm starting all over. And so my 22-year-old, from a young age, what I tried to do is, it started off with, for me, the way I started it off was with, like, I had started paying her to read books. I think it was like 10 cents a page, or 5 cents a page. I'm going to pay you to read this book, and we're going to discuss it after, and tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, and some things. And so we did that. And then I brought her into the business, and I'd pay her to do little activities. But really what I'm doing is in that case, I'm trying to teach her the discipline of work and of money and the value of those kinds of things. And then I also tried to inspire a sense of curiosity. And so, really kind of being open with things, and, talk about, she'd be like, well, why don't you have a job like everybody else? Everybody else's dad has to go to get a job. And I'm like, well, here's what I'm doing, sweetheart. And I explained to her. Right. Well, and so, man, I'll tell you, when all of this happened with Life in Air, like right when I first got into Life in Air, mm-hmm. I was not the greatest dad, because I wasn't there mentally. Like, she'd be talking to me, excuse me. And she's my oldest is super talkative, and she'd be telling me about her day, and I'm not even there. I'm not really listening. I'm nodding along and saying, I'm worrying about my job. I'm worried about all the things I got to do, all the bills I got to pay, the contractors, the flips, the deals, and so she missed out on some of that early on. And thank the Lord, we have an awesome relationship now. And I've actually had her come out to help. I've paid her to come out to our Life in Air events, because here's the thing, man, that I know, and all the parents out there know, is, like, you only have so much influence over your kids. Like, they're only going to listen to you so much, no matter what. But when they hear it from other people, and now they're seeing other people make changes in their lives because what you're saying is making sense, and it's actually having an effect on people. And, what you're saying is echoed through others. It does tend to really make much more of a deep impact, so that it's not just, you're, oh yeah, okay, dad. Yeah. Okay, mom. Like it makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you're absolutely right. I love the fact that you are surrounding your children, at least you've talked about with your oldest, surrounding your children with those that inspire you or those that you're inspiring. I think it's just so good to have them in those circles and for them to be exposed to that. Wonderful job. So a little bit off the subject here, I want to talk a little bit kind of like full scope here. You mentioned that you were a bodybuilder and that allowed you to have some success in certain in industries. I'm a big proponent of the dedication to your health. I truly believe that by doing that, by making sure that one of those foundations, such as your health, as long as making that a priority in your life, allows you to do all of the other things you really want to achieve in your life. As a bodybuilder, obviously there is massive discipline that you have had to learn over those years to be successful in it. How has that allowed you to be successful in all of these other areas of your life?
Man, that is an amazing question and an amazing concept, because I fully credit what I learned through bodybuilding to success almost everywhere. So for instance, like a couple of highlight, and by the way, man, we need to write a book on this, because like there's so many lessons. Like, so for instance, like in bodybuilding, it's the small repetitive consistency actions that lead to results. Whether you're talking about diet, whether you're talking about training, you're always getting better. You're slowly improving. Like, when I work out, I'm writing down on a logbook how much I lifted the previous attempt. And now I'm going to try and go, oh gosh, one more rep or 2 more pounds. Yeah. And you're constantly trying to improve. And I think that's the exact analogy that is true for life. Now, and it's the same as in real life. Nobody can do it for you. You have to do it. Like, and so this is where I think people get stuck with, I can think about lifting a weight or eating chicken all day long, but it's not going to have any effect on my life until I take action and do it. And so, measuring results, right? That's an important thing, like, especially in business. So learning, like, I feel like bodybuilding has been transformational for me. And frankly, like, it showed me that I can actually accomplish things that I never would have thought of. Like, man, because I graduated high school at 142 pounds. And, at one point I was over 100 pounds. I'm not anymore because my body couldn't handle it. But when I was competitive and I was doing national competitions, I was walking around at 250. And whoa. Man, and that's, by the way, my body did not like that at all. And so I wouldn't recommend that. But it gave me the possibility, like, you can reinvent yourself. Like, you're not stuck with, I remember, I was picked on as a kid, like, and that just, it gives you the confidence to do other things. You're like, wow, like this actually, I can small consecutive steps make a huge difference. And that I've applied that to everything.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. What a great example. 140 all the way up to 250. Just the image of what that would look like is pretty outstanding, my man. Jay, I've really appreciated you having on the show today. Where can people find more about Life in Air? Where do you want to direct it to?
Yeah, man, the best two places. The best place is probably lifeinair.com, where you'll see all of our upcoming events and you'll see all the things we offer. And if you want to be part of a conversation, we've formed a private Facebook group, and you could find it just by looking on, just type in Life in Air and you'll see it'll say private group. And Life in Air, and we've kind of alluded to it a couple of times over this conversation, is like the people you surround yourself with has a huge impact on your success. Whether it's because they have confidence in you, whether they're encouraging or supportive, or they're on a path you want to be on. And so this private community is just a great place to lift each other up, to encourage each other, to ask questions, to help each other with business, with life, and everything in between. So go on and you can join that as well. It's not just for if you're a Life in Air member, it's for anybody who wants to, pursue that. I
love it, man. And you guys do 2 events throughout the year. So I think that's awesome. People can find more information about that. And of course, you also do some masterminds as well too. So for those that want to get some special one-on-one attention with you guys and sign up and be a part of the culture, you can do that as well too. And lastly, before I get to the very last part of it, is that you are writing a book. It's going to be released here in the next couple months. Do you have a title for it, and where can people find it when it is released? So we are still working on the title. Because this is a huge part. I get it, man. I'll tell you, but I can tell you the concept the concept is revolving around an acronym I created. It's called SEED, SEAD, not seed as in SEED.
SEAD. It stands for Strategic Elimination, Automation, Delegation. And it's a business book for small business owners and entrepreneurs who want to remove themselves from their business and have ownership over their business versus them getting owned by the business and having a business that is dependent on them. And if you want to learn more about that, where you are going to launch it, like you said, very soon, you can just go to lifeinair.com/launch. And I'm going to be giving all kinds of bonuses and goodies and specials and things for people to be part of that. And so that'd be awesome. It's going to be, man, this book, I'm more excited about this than anything I've done recently.
Well, it's most certainly been a passion project of yours. I know, as you kind of alluded to me earlier, how long it's taking you to get to this point. And listen, when you're writing a book and you're doing it for the first time, it is like, it's like having a child. I mean, as men, we're not giving birth to it, but I tell you, it is the closest experience that we probably can get to, because it is a very long process. It always takes longer than you think, but you're putting your heart and soul into it. And I'm really excited. It sounds like a fantastic subject. And there's no doubt about it that entrepreneurs most certainly can get overwhelmed when they do follow into that passion of their business. It's something they love to do. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you lose your identity, you lose your life in it. That's definitely an issue.
Yep, absolutely, man.
Well, hey, listen, as we wrap up here, man, I would love for you to bring us home. We've got a lot of people out there that are entrepreneurs, business owners, they're moms, they're dads, they've got families, and I know, like us, they find themselves at certain times of their life, certain chapters where they feel overwhelmed. They maybe feel underappreciated. They feel like maybe all they have is breadcrumbs and they're ready for that loaf of bread. What would you say to them? How do you encourage them now in this point to keep going, to continue to strive for that excellence in their life, and after that big goal that they have? What would you say to that person now?
The first thing is that it is absolutely possible. I've seen it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, that you can have the dream life you want and the dream business you want, both. You don't have to choose. And that and I'm not even telling, and listen, without getting into the strategy behind this, some people feel like they want to shoot for the moon and they reach the stars, or however that goes. And some people are just one small step. But I'll tell you, if you just take consistent action in the direction of that dream, and just focus on the actions, don't focus on the results, just focus on the actions will lead to the results, so that one step forward each time will get you further and further ahead. That's the key to success. Like when you're climbing a mountain, you don't stare at the peak the whole time, because it'll feel like you're never going to get there. But you focus on, hey, I'm just going to move these 10 steps, these 20 steps. And as you do that, that's how you climb the mountain. That's how you're successful in life. And just keep going. I'm cheering for you.
Love it, man. That is awesome. All right, you guys, what a great way to end today's podcast. Hey, listen, Jason, if you want to follow him, you know how to get to him and his company, Life in Air. And as always, you guys, the price of admission here is to pass this along. I know there's somebody out there in your world right now that needs to hear this message, that needs some encouragement because of life and what's going on in their world. Get this into their hands so that Jason can speak some life into them. Hey, absolutely love you guys. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.